The new season of Buffy is just 7 days away. But first,
Read me the sign!
see how last season ended
She's dead.
before the new season begins. Buffy, next.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James, and I may be dead, but I'm still pretty, which is
That's
more
right,
than I can say for you.
This that kind of tells you this is our coverage of episode 12 of season 1, the final episode of this season, Prophecy Girl.
Yes, final episode of the season. We will be following it up next week with, of course, as previously discussed, our bonus episode coverage of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Yes, and we'll be doing it in a watch along style format.
Right, in that you and I we will be watching the movie and commentating on it as it happens. As opposed to our typical view beforehand and take notes and discuss format.
Right.
The for you, the listeners, if you don't have a copy of the movie, or you do and you want to watch along as we view and commentate, we of course will be during that podcast, we'll be giving you a nice little countdown to get the movie rolling. If you don't have a copy of the movie, it's available on tons of platforms, Google Play TV and Movies, YouTube, Amazon Prime, Vudu. I will be posting a list on all our socials where it can be found. I will say it's not available for free. You will have to rent or buy it. Rental is $4 on every platform. I don't know how much it costs to purchase it.
And to purchase it would just be insane. Let's be honest.
Wow.
Go ahead and just rent it if you want to follow along with us, because to own it would be on par with owning, I don't know, imagine something completely useless, and that's what it would be like.
Wow. You know,
Yeah.
Jeremy, some people do enjoy the movie.
I don't think so.
No, they do. They do. I promise you, some people enjoy.
I think there are only 11 people in the entire world who.
Wow, only 11.
11.
What's going to happen if we revisit the movie and all these years later you're like, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was.
No, that's probably not going to happen. I can remember it for the most part. Obviously there's lots of, things I don't remember, but a lot I do, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's never going to happen. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see.
We shall see. But that will be we'll be doing that next week, and then that will be our final episode for about a month or so. We're gonna take a break, recharge our batteries, and then come back with coverage of starting with season 2.
Season 2 of our favorite show. One of our favorite shows.
And so anyway, that's the news as far as all that goes. Again, today we're doing episode 12 of season 1, which is the final episode, Prophecy Girl.
And let's dive into some dates and deets here. Once again, episode is Prophecy Girl. Its original air date was June 2nd, 1997 on the WB. Our episode director is Joss Whedon, or He Who Shall Not Be Named.
He Who Shall Not Be
Named. He directed throughout the Buffyverse, that of course being Buffy and Angel, 25 episodes, 20 for Buffy and 5 for Angel. Those include, for Buffy, Prophecy Girl, When She Was Bad, Lie to Me, Innocence, Becoming Part 1 and 2, Anne, Amends, Doppelgangland, Graduation Day Part 1 and 2, The Freshman, Hush, Who Are You, Restless Family, The Body, The Gift, Once More with Feeling, and Chosen. His Angel episodes include Untouched, Waiting in the Wings, Spin the Bottle, Conviction, A Hole in the World. His non-Buffyverse director credits include TV episodes of The Nevers, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Glee, Dollhouse, The Office, and Firefly. His movie director credits include Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron, Serenity, and Justice League. Our episode credited writer this week is also Joss Whedon. As previously discussed, he's got 40 episodes across the two shows, 29 for Buffy, 11 for Angel. Most of the episodes he wrote, he also directed. He directed episodes of Dollhouse, Firefly, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Roseanne. Of course, directed Avengers Age of Ultron, or wrote, Avengers Age of Ultron, The Cabin in the Woods, and Alien Resurrection, which I actually think he only rewrote that, but it was significant enough that he got final writer credits for that.
Makes sense.
Our regular cast this week, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our returning cast, or our guest starring cast this week, includes Mart Metcalf returning as the Master, David Boreanaz as Angel, Kristen Sutherland as Joyce, Robia Lamort as Jenny, Andrew J. Fairchild as Colin, and our guest players this week are Scott Gurney as Kevin.
Did you happen to see that there were a couple of guys credited for left and right tendril?
I did, actually. Yeah. And I'll get into that in our behind the scenes, actually.
Yeah, I found that lulzy.
Also, I forgot to include him here, but Buffy's dad does make a return appearance this episode as well.
He does?
Yes.
I don't recall that.
Well, did you watch the episode?
You're clearly lying to me.
Okay, if you say so.
I don't remember that at all. Seriously?
Yeah. It's near the beginning of the episode, after Buffy comes back from LA. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Whoa.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I know I'm not high, and I know I'm not, what the hell?
Nope, that's my bad.
Yeah.
Our episode synopsis this week is: Giles discovers an ancient prophecy that predicts a violent end for Buffy, and an army of demons attempt to bring about the end of the world.
I'd say that's nearly right.
Yeah. What's our IMDb description say?
Giles discovers an ancient book foretelling Buffy's death at the hands of the Master. Again, partially right. He didn't discover any book. Angel gave it to him last week, which you would all know, having listened to last week's episode.
Right. So, you want to jump us in?
I will take the cold open this week. So,
I'm sorry. Before you get started, I will say this is our first instance, and it makes sense. This is our first instance so far of a previously on Buffy.
I didn't get that in my version.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
I have it digitally ripped. So.
Oh, yeah. On the Hulu version, which I believe are the DVD versions. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they have to be. I'm sure they have to be, because I don't think it's ever been released on Blu-ray.
There's we get a previously on Buffy recap from Giles, and it basically recaps all the pertinent moments of the Master's story throughout the season.
That's odd. I wonder why mine doesn't have that, because I ripped it straight from the DVD. So, well, anyway.
Yep.
Anyway. So yeah, we come in, we're in the Bronze. Xander's practicing basically on Willow to to finally ask Buffy out. He wants to ask her to the spring fling dance, which we find out later in the episode is actually just their other term for the prom.
Right.
So
Which I'm still confused, because in the previous episode it was referred to also as the spring dance.
yeah, well, I don't think I don't think the actual dance ever occurred.
No. But that's what I'm saying. So like,
Yeah. So I think, yeah. Who has another name for the prom that no
right,
one?
right. But if you remember when we talked about that last week, I speculated that it might be like an alternative name for the prom, and the May Queen is actually the prom queen, and
Yeah.
but which, like you said, makes no sense. Why not just call it the frickin' prom? But anyway,
I'm thinking he who must not be named must have went to a weird school and he kicked over. So, Xander is testing out all these different ways of, basically asking Buffy out, and then he would say something a little stupid and get onto his own case, like, God, that was stupid. Well, Willow's totally enthralled with this whole thing. She's just got dreamy eyes staring at him, I'm sure, imagining imagining that he's asking her out and all this. And so he's like, well, I've got to ask her. I've got to do it now. And she's like, well, Buffy's not here. And she's like, well, Buffy's not here, but you can keep practicing on me, because, she's totally into this. And he's like, yeah, what the hell? Why didn't she show up tonight? And we cut to her flying through the air and landing flat on her back. She's it's nighttime, obviously, and she's out patrolling. That's why she's not at the Brahms. And you see a car off in the distance, and it's Cordelia with her new beau. She seems to have a new one every episode. And they're, clearly making out and blah blah blah. It's just like a park area. It's close to school. It's pretty close to school. So anyway, Buffy gets back up and handles this vampire and dusts him, which that was a dusting. We saw it. There's 5 Gs.
it was a pretty good one too. Like, we saw the full thing, the whole scene.
As he hit, he just poof.
Yeah. We don't have to mention it, but I would like to mention that the majority of that fight scene is filmed in slow motion.
Yeah.
It's very cinematic. Very cinematic.
Well, he who must not be named, trying to get his name out there for the big boys. So after she dusts him, she's kind of brushing herself off, and she says, 3 in one night. Giles would be so proud. And then we cut to the library, and Giles is reading the codex that he received from Angel in last week's episode. And it sounds like it's in Latin, and he is attempting to, he obviously knows Latin, and he's trying to translate it into English. And he reads a couple of Latin lines, and then he says, the master shall rise, and the slayer shall, and he trails off. And then he says, my God. And he reaches over on the edge of his desk to pick up his tea, and it starts shaking, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. There's obviously an earthquake. We have various scenes all over Sunnydale of it getting crazy. We go back to the bronze. Xander grabs Willow. They run under the stairs to hide. And the library itself, there where Giles is, gets pretty fucked up. Got a giant gaping hole in the floor now. All this torn up concrete. The walls are cracked. A lot of structural damage.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut to the creep cave. And the master is super happy about all this. And he's saying, yes. This is a sign. We're in the final days. My time has come. Glory, glory. And then he looks over at the little boy, the anointed one, and says, what do you think? 5.1? And that's our cold open.
That is our cold open. And after our credits roll, we come back and we are once again in the library, and Giles is coming out of his office. He's got some books in his hand, and he walks over to the book cage as Buffy comes in, and she greets him with a chipper, good morning. And She looks around and surveys the damage, and Giles is looking at her like he's seen a ghost. And she makes a comment about how the damage looks structural and asks if they're safe to be in there. And Giles is like he's off. Like he's stammering around her and seems a little uneasy. She asks if he got much sleep, and he says he's been working. And she tells him about how she went out hunting last night, and she killed 3 vampires, and one was practically on school grounds. And Buffy says, she doesn't like the situation. The vampires are getting cockier, and last night was a pretty close call. And she asked Giles if he even cares, because he's still very distracted by whatever he read from the codex. And he just tells her that he needs to verify some stuff, and he can't really talk right now. And she says that's fine. I can't put it off any longer. I have to meet my terrible fate. And that startles Giles, and he turns around and he's all like, what? And she's like, biology.
Yeah.
So that the bell rings, and Buffy leaves, and Giles watches her go. And we cut to outside after class, and Buffy and Willow and Xander are coming out of the doors on that upper balcony there, and they head down the stairs, and they all talk about how boring it was. And Xander kind of shoos Willow away, and they part ways. The three, well, Willow leaves Xander and Buffy as they reach the bottom of the stairs, and Xander takes Buffy over to a bench and, sits her down and tells her there's something he needs to talk to her about. And so they sit down, and Xander finally professes his love to Buffy and asks her to go to the spring dance with him. And Buffy rejects him, says she doesn't feel the same way about him. And Xander is obviously disappointed, and ends up heading off back into the building with his depressed face on.
Totally butthurt.
And that's the end of that scene.
Yeah, then we cut back to the library. Giles is making a phone call, and to the person on the other end, he says, "This is Giles," and he says, "Rupert Giles." Person obviously knows who the fuck it is, and he says, "I need to see you. Come after sundown." Well, Miss Calendar, Jenny, I'll just call her Jenny from here on, is in the doorway of his office there. She kind of overheard the call, and she realizes he was there. He's been there all night because his clothes are the same and they're wrinkly. And she realizes something's going on. And he's like, "Well, what do you know?" And she says, that she'd been receiving a lot of messages from her, cyber group and whatnot. A cat had given birth to a litter of snakes. A family was swimming in a lake, and the lake began to boil. And a little boy was born in the hospital with his eyes turned inward. And she's like, "This is apocalypse stuff." And Giles says she wants to know more. What exactly what the hell's going on? And he's like, "Well, I'm just not sure I can trust you." And she says a brother Luca has been sending out a lot of messages online about an anointed one. Giles is like, the anointed one. He's dead. Because if you recall, in that episode where he was introduced, Buffy killed a vampire who they believed was the anointed one, although he was not. So then she says it's something about a prophecy that this brother Luca is talking about, and that piques Giles, and he says, well, I want you to talk to this monk, find out everything he knows. And she's like, you haven't told me jack. And he snaps, and he's like, just do it. And he's like, sorry, just do it. I'll explain later. And Jenny says, you better. That's that scene.
We cut back to the halls, and Cordy's with her new boyfriend, and he's telling her that he'll get to everything after practice, and she rattles off a bunch of stuff that she needs him to pick up from the AV room, and she tells him to bring it to the Browns, and she'll meet him there in the morning, and he says it's, done, and they're giggling and cooing over each other, and Cordelia spots Willow, and she tells her she likes her outfit, and Willow's like, no, you don't. And Cordelia's like, no, I don't, but I need a favor. And so Cordelia asks her if she'd meet her and her new beau at the Bronze the following morning to set up the sound system, because the Bronze won't let them use theirs. And Willow says she will, and she spots Xander throwing a ball against a wall in a classroom. And she goes,
wall.
What's that?
I said a ball against a wall.
A ball against a wall. And so she goes into the room and, asks him how things went with Buffy. And, he tells her it was awful, and Buffy rejected him and this and that. And then he has the bright idea that, he and Willow can go to the dance together. It would be fun. And Willow shoots him down, and he's taken aback. He's shocked. And she's like, do you really think I want to go to the dance with you and watch you wish you were there with her instead, And Xander, he doesn't even try to apologize or anything. Like, he's just like, I didn't think. And Willow says she'll see him on Monday and leaves, and Xander's like, that's okay, I didn't really want to go, I'll just go home and listen to country music, the music of pain.
Yeah, which I love that line.
And
go ahead.
I was saying, he whips the ball at the wall again and just lets it bounce wild. I think it bounces outside the room, actually.
While he stalks away, butt hurt.
Yep.
I'll grab this next section. We've got a clip to play.
Okay.
So we're still at Sunnydale High School, but now it's nighttime, and Buffy's at her locker, and she pulls out a stake, and some students walk by, but they pay no attention. Then she steps into the restroom, and she's looking in the mirror, and she turns on some water to run, and then after doing whatever she's going to do in the mirror, she looks down, and the water's running like pure blood. It's just blood. So she heads over into the library, and as she enters, she goes, Giles, you are not going to believe this. She hears him and someone else talking in his office. And as she gets a little closer, she realizes it's Angel that he's talking to. And Angel says, it's clear, it's happening now. Or I'm sorry, Giles says that. And they're looking at the codex, and Angel's like, this can't be, you've got to be wrong. And he's like, I've checked it against all my other volumes. It's very real. And they keep going back and forth, and Angel's like, no, this can't be. And basically Giles cuts him off and says, this is correct. The codex says the Slayer will face the Master tomorrow night, and she will die. And then they hear Buffy chuckling, and she's overheard the whole thing, and she just kind of stumbles out back into the main part of the library. Obviously, she's in shock and stunned. And they attempt to calm her. I'm going to play a clip. This is about a 2-minute clip, but I think it's important. I think it's probably the most. I don't know. I don't even know what phrase to use. It's very a lot of emotion. It's a very important scene. Probably the most important scene we've seen ever in the show so far.
It's very poignant.
Yeah. So I'm going to play it now and just let you guys hear how this conversation goes.
Well, have you verified the text?
So that's it, huh? I remember the drill. One Slayer dies, next one's called. Wonder who she is. Will you train her? Or will they send someone else?
Buffy,
To say how he's gonna kill me? Do you think it'll hurt? Don't touch me! You even gonna tell me?
I was hoping that I wouldn't have to, that there was some way around it.
I've got a way around it. I quit.
It's not that simple.
I'm making it that simple. I quit. I resign. I'm fired. You can find someone else to stop the Master from taking over.
I'm not sure that anyone else can. All the signs indicate...
Signs? Read me the signs! Tell me my fortune! You're so useful sitting here with all of your books. You're really a lot of help.
I don't suppose I am.
I know this is hard.
What do you know about this? You're never gonna die.
You think I want anything to happen to you, huh? Do you think I could stand it? We just gotta figure out a way.
I already did. I quit, remember? Pay attention.
Buffy, if the Master rises...
I don't care! I don't care. Giles, I'm 16 years old. I don't want to die.
And she rips off the cross from around her neck and tosses it down. And yeah, I found that to be a very powerful scene. Kudos to SMG. She kills it in that scene. And so yeah, she's, I mean, imagine being 16 and not only a supernatural being, but then hearing that. So yeah, that's rough. Then we cut to Willow, who's at home, sitting at her desk reading, and she looks at a picture of her and Xander, kind of sighs, and so she picks up her phone and starts dialing it. Obviously, she's going to call him, and we cut to his bedroom, which is completely trashed and disheveled. I don't know if it's because of what he's going through or this is just standard Xander operating procedure here. But he's laying in his bed backwards.
But he's a 16, 17-year-old boy, so I would imagine this is probably just standard.
Yeah. And he's listening to I Fall to Pieces. So he indeed is listening to the music of pain, country music. So his phone rings. He reaches over, he picks it up, puts it right back on the hook. Then he takes it off the hook and tosses it aside. And he's obviously being super, super emo at this point.
And that'll take us to Buffy's room. Although I just want to say that scene with Buffy and Giles and Angel, you're right. It's a phenomenal scene.
Yeah.
Sarah Michelle Gellar is just acts the hell out of it. It's very emotional. It's very raw, and you feel it. You feel it. But also Anthony Stewart Head and David Boreanaz too. It's you feel from Ash, you feel that that fatherly protection that he has for Buffy at this point. You know, he was hoping he wouldn't have to tell her about this prophecy, that he'd be able to figure out some way around it, you know. And I think sometimes as a viewer, even though it's kind of pushed in our face week after week, I sometimes think we do forget that Buffy's just a 16-year-old teenage, you know. She's a little girl. She's a little girl. You know,
a year prior to this or so, a little bit more than a year, she didn't even know about any of this. She wasn't a Slayer, nothing.
Right. It's such a great scene. Such a great scene.
Yeah, it really was. That's why I wanted to play as much of it as possible. It just, very poignant, as you said.
So that'll take us to Buffy's room, and she's looking through a photo album, old pictures, and Joyce comes in and she asks her if she's all right, and she says she is. And Joyce, of course, you know, asks her if she wants to tell her what's on her mind, and Buffy asks her if they can go away, you know, for a long weekend, and Joyce is resistant, and Buffy's trying to talk her into it, and Joyce says the gallery's open on the weekends, and then Joyce, you know, says, "Isn't the prom tomorrow night, or the spring fling, whatever they're calling it?" So yeah, we have confirmation that they're the same thing. And they're just calling it something weird for some reason,
which no one in the history of the world has done.
So and if anyone went to school where they called the prom something other than prom, let us know, please.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm genuinely curious.
That I mean, not that it. I don't find it hard to believe that it ever happened. I just find it hard to believe that it was that there would be very many people out there, like, you know, that was very prevalent. I don't know.
Right. So Buffy says she guesses it is, and Joyce asks, you know, nobody asked you, and Buffy says someone did, and Joyce says, but not the right someone. She opens Buffy's closet, and inside the closet is this nice sleeveless white gown, and Joyce says she saw Buffy eyeing it at the store, so she bought it for her, and Buffy says she can't go to the dance, and Joyce ends up telling her a story about how she went to her homecoming, her freshman year of college. She went to her homecoming without a date, but she got dressed up and went anyway. And Buffy asks if it was awful, and Joyce says it was awful for about an hour. And then she met her father, and Buffy says he didn't have a date either, and Joyce says he did. Just confirming that Joyce is in fact a whore. As we have talked about in the past. And that's probably why their divorce, in fact, did happen.
I knew you were going to go there. I knew it.
But not only that, but apparently Hank Summers is a dirty, dirty cheater.
Yeah.
So who really? So we're still up in the air about.
And now we know why their marriage did not last.
Right.
2 years. I mean, come on.
Right. I mean, realistically, though, we're still up in the air as to why the marriage didn't last. Did Joyce revert back to her whorish college ways? Did
Hank revert back to his whorish college ways?
Right. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
We still don't. We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
And Buffy and Joyce says that that's a story that Buffy won't get to hear, but that it was a beautiful night, and Buffy laments, and you had your whole life ahead of you, and how that must be nice. And that's the end of that scene.
Yeah, and then we're at school the next day, which I believe this would be a Saturday, because it's not like school's in. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and also, last we saw Cordelia. She was asking Willow to meet her the next morning to help with setting up the audio system.
Right.
And when we last saw Willow, well, outside of trying to call Xander, she did tell Xander, "See you Monday."
Right. So that was Friday. This is now Saturday. This is the day of the prom.
Right.
And Willow and Cordy are coming down some steps into the hall. They're heading towards the AV room. And Cordy's talking about how Kevin flaked on her, didn't do any of the stuff he was supposed to do. So now they're running hella behind, and like she doesn't know how they're going to get it all done. And she's kind of freaking a little bit. And Willow kind of tries to talk her down, and she's like, "No, you don't get it. I'm not mad. I think it's kind of cute that he flaked on me." And then she's like, "Oh, God help me." And so they go on and they get to the AV room, and they can see in the glass there of the door that they're all sitting on a couch, and there's cartoons playing on the television. And Cordy's like, "Oh, look, it's cartoons. That's so cute." It's not cute. It's no. I'm very mad. They're gonna get my icy stare, or they've basically, she says that he has he has underestimated the power of her icy stare. And so she grabs the doorknob and opens it, and Kevin falls out head first. He had been leaning against the door. He's dead. Vamp teeth marks on his neck. So she drops down to the ground, and she's Kevin, blah blah blah. Willow goes on into the rest of the room and spots all of his buddies, that they're all just massacred. They've all been killed by vamps, and there's a bloody handprint on the screen of the television, and that fades out to back to Buffy in her bedroom, and she's got her new dress on, and she's looking in the mirror, and she's obviously happy, but at the same time not happy. And her mother comes rushing in. Buffy, there's something on the news. It's Willow. And the next scene, we cut directly to Buffy sitting on the end of Willow's bed in her bedroom, and Willow's clearly traumatized as fuck. Not taking this well. They're talking, and Willow's like, "Well, I thought I could take anything because I've seen so much, but this was different." And Buffy says, "It doesn't matter as long as you're okay." And, Willow's like, but it is different. I knew those guys. I go to that room every day. And when I walked in, it wasn't our world anymore. They had made it theirs and they had fun. And this, Allison Hannigan tears this up. She's a great, great actress, which most people I'm sure know, but she tears this part up too. And go ahead.
Yeah. You can go ahead and finish up this scene, and then we can. I'll jump in.
Yeah. So she says, "What are we gonna do?" And Buffy says, "Well, we have to." She gets up starts to leave, and she says, "Promise me you'll stay in tonight, okay?" And Buffy starts to leave, and she says, "Oh, by the way, Buffy, I like your dress." And Buffy kind of smiles and says, "Take care," and exits the premises.
Yes.
Yes.
And I agree. Allison Hannigan eats this scene.
Mhm.
It's so good.
She always does such a good job at being like traumatized
And vulnerable.
super emotional and vulnerable. Yeah, and she's really good. I mean, she's a great actress, obviously, but
Yeah.
they were so young here, her and SMG, and they were on their shit.
Here's my thing. I don't feel this scene was earned. I don't her I knew those guys. I go to that room every day. These aren't the first people that have been killed on campus.
Yeah.
They aren't the first people she's known that have been killed.
Clearly not people she hangs out with
on campus. Right. They're not people she hangs out with, but regardless of that, they're not the first people she's known that have been killed on campus. It's Allison Hannigan makes it a good scene.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's a warranted scene.
It almost feels like one of those Euro minutes scenes from Highlander.
You know what this is, in my opinion? This is we need to get Buffy back into the game scene.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, because this is what basically snaps her out of it, and she's like, "Fuck it, prophecy or not, yeah, I'm fucking some shit up," because they've traumatized my best friend here. So
exactly, and like I said, unfortunately, I don't feel like it was earned.
Yeah.
I feel like the points Willow makes in this scene aren't. The situation's no different than anything she's been involved with at any point in 11 episodes prior to this.
Yeah, totally.
In my opinion,
it feels like it was quickly written. Like they realized we need something to bridge that, and they were just like, "Wait, I got it. We'll use that previous scene."
Right. Like, Buffy freaked out. Buffy, left the game for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah, she went to Holy Ground.
We need to get her back in. What do we do?
Right.
And this was the result.
Yeah.
So that cuts us to a brief little scene where we're in the Master's lair, and the Master's testing the confines of his whatever mystic barriers keeping him trapped down there.
I just always call it the barrier.
Right, in that sunken mission, and Colin, the Anointed One, is watching, and
I could not remember that little name, because I wanted to be able to just write his name in my notes, but I had to keep writing the Anointed One because I couldn't remember his little weird name.
And he like I said, Master testing the confines, pushes his hand against the barrier, and it's still resisting, and he says soon. And then we cut to the library.
Well, now wait. He says soon, and he looks at Colin, and Colin turns and leaves, like he's sending him off somewhere.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I did miss that. I do have that in my notes though. He gives Colin a look, and Colin gets up and leaves.
Yeah.
We cut to the library again, and Giles is pulling weapons out of the book cage and prepping them, and Jenny's there, and she's
Jenna.
kind of Jenna. Rupert doesn't know much, but he knows what love is. No. And she basically gives us a little recap of what's been going on with the Master and the Hellmouth. You know, she's like, Master tried to open the Hellmouth, got stuck. Now all the signs are reading he's going to get out, which opens the Hellmouth, brings the demon, the end of the world. And Giles is like, yeah, that about sums it up.
Much.
And she says that the part that really shocks her is where Buffy's the Slayer. You know, she's so tiny.
Yeah, which is true.
Giles asks if she was able to get in touch with Brother Luca, and Jenny says he disappeared. But he did send out one last short global message, and it's Isaiah 11:6, which says, the wolf shall live with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf, the lion, and the fatling together, and the little child to lead them. And
Which Giles knows this by heart before she can even read it off to him.
yeah, and she says it's kind of warm and fuzzy for a message of doom. And he's like, well, it depends on where he's leading them to. And he says that Aurelius wrote that the Anointed One, or of the Anointed One, the Slayer will not know him, and he will lead her into hell. And Jenny correctly points out, you know, Luca thinks the Anointed is a kid, and Giles says, well, if the vampire that Buffy killed wasn't the Anointed One, it could be. You know, Jenny says they need to warn her, and Giles says he doesn't intend to involve her at all. And he says he's going to face the Master, and of course Buffy shows up and is all like, no, you're not. You know, so I'm looking for a kid, he'll lead me to the Master. And Giles and Buffy go back and forth. You know, Giles all like, I'm not going to send you out there to die. You're right. I've spent too much time around these books, and I've forgotten what it's like out there. It's time I find out. And they're verbally going back and forth. And
I love the line where he says, I'm sorry, I have to cut in here,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I love the line where he says, where is it at? Shoot, I've lost it. Oh, where he says, he says, I've made up my mind. And she's like, I've made up mine. And he's like, well, I made up mine first. I'm older and wiser than you, so just do what you're told for once. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love Anthony Stewart Head. So
yeah, that's a funny line.
Yeah.
So the conversation ends with Giles telling Buffy, you know, nothing she says is going to change his mind. She says, I know, and she turns to leave and then turns back around and just socks him right in the fucking mush, as you would say.
Put him to sleep.
And he's out. He's done. Miss Calendar goes over to him and, you know, tilts his head up in her hands, and Buffy tells her, you know, when he wakes up, tell him, I don't know, think of something cool and tell him I said it.
Yeah.
And Jenny says, you know, if you face the Master, you'll die. And Buffy says, maybe I'll take him with me. And she leaves.
And she's got the crossbow, and she's put the cross back on.
Yep.
She is out for some ass kicking.
And we cut outside, and Buffy's kind of made it a short distance from the school, and we hear from off screen Colin say, help me. And she walks over to him, and she's like, you know, it's okay, I know who you are. and he holds out his hand, and she takes it, and she starts to lead him to the master.
Yep. And I'm like, wow, all these episodes, and that was all that we needed to have happen. But anyway, Xander and Willow are now at the library, having been filled in with everything that's going on, and Giles is holding an ice pack up to his smashed face, and Xander is just freaking out. He's like, "What do we do?" And Giles is like, "We stay calm," and he's like, "Calm?" And Willow's like, "Yeah, I think he's right," and she's like, "What can we do to help Buffy though from like here?" And Jenny says, "Hey guys, there's still the apocalypse to worry about." And Willow goes, "How come she gets to be part of the club?" And Jenny goes, "Hey," and Xander just doesn't give a fuck about any of this nonsense. All he cares about is Buffy and protecting Buffy. And so he's like, I got to do something. And Giles is like, "Well, we don't even know where she's gone." And Xander says, "No, but I can find out." And he leaves. And then we cut to Buffy, who is just entering the outer confines, I guess you could say, of the creep cave. Crossbow at the ready. She's following the little creepy ass fucking Colin. And then we cut to knock, knock, knock. And where'd Angel go?
Heaven's door. Oh, sorry.
Knock, knock, knock. Okay, I'm going to do that again this week. So Angel opens his door and he goes, "Oh, look who's here." And Xander says, "Mind if I come in?" This is while he's walking in. Clearly doesn't give a fuck. And he's like, "Look, Buffy's gone to fight the master." And Angel's like, if she's doing that, he's going to kill her. And Xander's like, "Yeah, but we're not going to let that happen." And Angel's like, "What do you propose we do about it?" And Xander says, "Well, you know where he is. He's, underground. Take me to him." And Angel says, "You're way out of your league, kid. He'll kill you before you can even breathe. And that's if you're lucky." And Xander says, "How can I say this clearly?" And then he pulls out a huge cross and sticks it right in Angel's face and backs Angel down into a chair. And he says, "I don't like you, but Buffy obviously does. At the end of the day, I think you're just a vampire, but Buffy thinks you're a real person. So you need to prove her right." And Angel's looking at him and he says, "You're in love with her." And it's not a question. He's just stating, "You're in love with her." And Xander says, "Aren't you?"
And that takes us back to the library where Giles has a armful of books as he's, coming out of the stacks, and he says that the master's as old as any vampire on record, and there's no telling how powerful he'll be if he reaches the surface. And Jenny is asking where is the Hellmouth? Like, it's the Hellmouth's gonna open, but where? And Giles is like, it's clear Giles had never thought about that aspect of it for whatever reason.
Yeah, which kind of surprised me when he goes, "Good point." And I'm like, "Wait, you've never actually thought about where the physical location of this Hellmouth is?"
Right. So he hands Jenny a book, and he's, tells her to look through there.
Look through this book, Jenny.
The book's called the Black Chronicles, and
Of course
he tells Willow to go look through the local histories to check for common denominators or locations of instances where, that might lead them to where the Hellmouth actually is. And then we cut to the entrance of the Master's lair, and Buffy and Colin stop outside, and he points into the lair and leaves, and she makes her way down, and she's looking around, and there's a shit ton of candles everywhere, which is weird to me because like they're so far underground. Eventually, wouldn't air run out? Like I don't. How's
Well,
there enough oxygen down there for candles to burn?
Let's
I
just assume that they're well. First of all, he doesn't need oxygen, but let's
Right.
just assume that there is enough oxygen. Whenever I see a set like this, my only question is, who the fuck goes around and lights and blows out all these candles every day?
Well, also, who's blowing them out? Vampires don't breathe. Where are they getting the breath?
Well, maybe he just snuffing them out with his hand.
Fans it real fast. And also, like, are they stealing candles to replenish these?
When he sends out his minions of the night, he's like, and don't forget my candles.
Right.
Go to the Dollar Tree and don't forget my candles.
So, and then we hear the master welcome Buffy, and his voice seems to be coming from every direction at once. And Buffy says, "Thanks for having me."
Meanwhile, his voice is coming mystically from everywhere, and he's just crouched down behind a rock.
Right.
You
right.
can't see me.
Right. He's like,
hello. hello. He's just like standing behind a curtain, very still. You can see his feet underneath it.
Right. Yeah. And she's walking around, and he's like, "Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain."
He's like, "I see you," and he's like, "No, you don't.
No, you don't. You don't see me.
I'm the master.
I'm the master. You don't see me." So he steps into the light, and she's makes a joke about how he should call a contractor. It looks like he's got some water damage, and he's like, I love this line. He says, "Oh good, the feeble banter portion of the fight. Why don't we just cut to the..." And and Buffy lets a crossbow bolt fly in his direction, and he catches it, and
it's a perfect shot right to the heart.
Oh yeah.
And he catches it at the last possible second.
Right. And he's like, "Nice shot." Yeah. And that cuts to the tunnels. And what's happening in the tunnels, Jeremy?
Well, Angel and Xander, they're working their way through. Obviously, it's been a while since Angel was here. He's like, okay, wait, this is the way.
Right.
And they go off, and Xander.
And they didn't have Google Maps yet.
Oh yeah, no GPS whatsoever. So Xander pops up and says, "You looked at my neck," and Angel's like, "What?" He's like, "I saw you looking at my neck." He's like, "I wasn't looking at your fucking neck." And he's like, "Just keep your distance, pal. I told you to eat before we left." And they continue on through the tunnels.
And we cut back to the master's lair, and he's still holding the crossbow bolt.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. And he's like, "You're not going to kill me with that." And he snaps the crossbow bolt like a fucking twig.
Like a piece of balsa wood?
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Right. And Buffy's, "Don't be so sure." And the master says, "You still don't understand your part in all of this, do you? You're not the hunter, you're the lamb." And we cut to the library with Giles and Miss Calendar, and they're at a table studying their books, and Giles says, "The vampires have been gathering. They know he's coming. They're going to be his army." And Miss Calendar posits if maybe they'll gather at the Hellmouth. And Willow says, "Well, the last time the master tried to rise during the harvest, he sent a bunch of vampires to get him fresh blood." And Jenny asks where that happened, and Giles says the Bronze, and Willow yells the Prom. And Giles says, "We have to warn them." And starts to get up, and Jenny's like, "No, we'll go. You have to concentrate on demon killing." And uh, they start to head out, and Giles tells them to be careful. Willow says they will. And that takes us back to the Master's lair. And Buffy's slowly walking around looking for the Master, and she comes up on a dead body and keeps looking.
It's like they can replenish the candles and whatnot, but they can't get rid of the rotting corpses.
Right.
You know,
It was a statement,
it's
Jeremy.
very unkempt in there, and I'm kind of displeased with the overall.
I feel like the dead body was a decorating statement. It's very avant-garde.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is, yeah, there is that.
You have to have some piece that when people come to your home will draw their attention, and you can
immediately know that you're a killing vampire.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Or don't have any mirrors in your home at all, which will also lead people to the conclusion that you're a vampire.
And have like 600 candles that are burning at all times.
Right. When Buffy's taunting him, and she's like,
can we just really quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want you to picture something.
Mm-hmm.
All these hundreds of years ago.
Paint me a word picture, Jeremy.
Okay. All these hundreds of years ago, when he trapped himself in this cave, he was by himself. So it would have been pitch black dark when this occurred, and this barrier formed, blocking him in there. Okay. Where the fuck did he get? I mean, did he have to just sit there in the pitch black dark for like 100 years waiting for someone to show up, and then he could be like, "Yo, can you make a Walmart run for me? I really need some candles."
Well, it's an old missionary, so the candles were there.
Well, yeah, but how long has he been down there? I mean, I'm just saying,
like I if I remember, like 60 years or so.
And how did he not die from lack of blood?
I mean, presumably they've been feeding him.
Well,
they've been bringing him victims.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, how long did it take before anyone discovered him?
Oh, well, I mean, I suppose it's entirely possible.
It's not like he had a cell phone to just be like, beep, beep, beep. And he's like, yes, hello. What was that guy's name? Jawbone. Yeah. Hello, Jawbone. I'm stuck in this weird little cave. I don't know why I have a British accent.
Yeah, I don't know either. It was weird. It was really weird.
Yeah.
I was like Cockney too. It wasn't just like straight British. Yeah, it was Cockney.
Right.
No, I would surmise that he probably wasn't the only one in the mission when it collapsed. But even if he was, you can guarantee that his minions were in the surrounding area that didn't collapse underground, and probably went looking for him almost immediately.
Okay. All right. I can buy that.
If I was the leader of a vampire cult, essentially, that's how I wouldn't have had all my minions in the missionary with me. I would have had them,
I can buy that. It just bugged me for a long time. I'm like, if he was alone when this shit happened, like, how long did he sit there in the pitch black dark? Like, well, eventually, here I go again with this British accent. I don't know what. Anyway, like, he's like sitting there in the dark, and he's like, well, eventually, someone's gonna come along, hopefully, and they can do a store run for me. I don't know.
I would have to imagine he was not alone. I mean, especially
Darla and Jawbone might have been with him at the time,
Right. I mean,
and they wouldn't have been trapped by this mystical barrier.
Right.
Only he's affected by that. So.
Right. Because I mean, he was the master before this all happened. Like,
yeah.
So, I would bet dollars to donuts, and I love donuts and dollars.
I might love donuts more.
But
you need dollars, or you can't have any. What the fuck is with this?
That he wasn't alone when that all happened. So she's taunting him. She's like, for someone who's all powerful, you sure do like to hide. And he says, I'm waiting for you. I want this moment to last. And she kind of whispers to herself, well, I don't. And she looks for a beat or two longer. And then the master appears right behind her. And he says,
stood next to that curtain.
and he says, I understand. And she turns around and he knocks the crossbow out of her hands and grabs her by the neck. And that brings us to the school parking lot. And what's happening there?
Well, Willow and Jenny are quickly heading towards Jenny's car. She's fumbling to pull her keys out of her enormous, huge purse. Anyway, I just found that oddly distracting.
I probably would have left that in the library. Just
Yeah,
grabbed what I needed.
I probably would have grabbed my keys immediately, but anyway, Willow says, shit, do you think they're going to get, well, she doesn't say shit, but she says, do you think they're going to get there before we do? Talking about the vamps, getting to the bronze. And Jenny looks up and she says, no need to worry about that because they're not going to the bronze. And there's a metric fuck ton of vampires kind of zombie walking towards them. They look very zombie-ish.
Yeah.
And they're coming just from all directions. And so Jenny puts her hand on Willow's arm and spins them around to head back to the doors that they came out of. But there's vamps there too. They're basically fucking surrounded. Yes. And they're cut off. And we cut back to the master who still has Buffy by the throat.
Yes. And she knocks her arm away, or knocks his arm away, and she starts to run. But he holds his hand out towards her, and she freezes. Because now the master's a fucking Jedi.
This?
Because now the master is a fucking Jedi. Or Sith, more appropriately.
Because she's not even... Okay. We could argue that this was some type of hypnosis that he's powerful in because of his vampire shit. But she's not even fucking facing him. Right. She has her back to him and she's running. And he reaches out with the bullshit force and just stops her. And I have a huge problem with that. And it's actually taking half a point off my rating this week because that's bullshit.
I had an issue with it too. Again, not because of the fact that I wouldn't have had an issue with it if they had been looking at him
to have this power before.
Well,
then maybe I could accept it. But they have never shown him to have any type of powers beyond what a vampire would have, and then now all of a sudden he's got the force.
Right. And I would have let it slide too that they never indicated this as a power of his before if they had been making eye contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because exactly. It's clearly some sort of hypnosis.
Right. But like
you said, she had her back to him. Like what?
And it's like, this is literally just a force. And I'm like, well, fuck, if you've got that power, why didn't you just offer as soon as she came in? Problem solved, or just force grab her and pull her over to you, eat her, and, end credits. Right. I don't know.
So she looks back at him and she can't move, and he's walking towards her and ends up behind her, and he slides her leather jacket off and lets it hit the ground, and
then some Barry White music comes on.
And... Stop it. Stop it. She's a 16-year-old child.
In real life, she's like 20 at this point.
And Buffy's scared. She's breathing heavy. She's scared. And the master says, you tried. It was noble of you. You heard the prophecy that I was about to break free, and you came to stop me. But prophecies are tricky creatures. They don't tell you everything. And he leans in and whispers to her, you're the one that sets me free. If you hadn't come, I couldn't go. Think about that. And he waits for a beat, and then leans over and sinks his teeth right into Buffy's neck and drinks and then lets her go. And he exclaims, "Oh God, the power," as Buffy falls to her knees and collapses face down into a pool of water. And the master says, "And by the way, I like your dress." And he he steps over her and pushes once again against the magic barrier, and this time it breaks away as he forces his hand through, and he leaves. He exits his lair.
It's not explained very well, but it's clear that it's the power of the Slayer's blood mixed with his own power that allows him to finally
right. It's made him strong enough.
Right. And before we move on, I have to bring this up too, because this is something else that always drove me crazy. It's drove me crazy for years. I should say driven me crazy for years. What he says to her about, if you had not come, I could not go. Who the fuck didn't think of that? Like, I thought of that immediately way back in the day watching this episode. I'm like, well, just don't fucking go. Like the prophecy, well, blah, blah, blah. He can't get the fuck out of this mystical barrier. Don't fucking go. Just stay where you are at. Just play some fucking Scrabble. Like, Giles is this brilliant fucking dude who knows all these prophecies and all the ancient texts and everything. And he never thought to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe just don't go, because it's not like he can come and get you. So if you just don't go tomorrow, prophecy unfulfilled.
But
ding, in credits.
The master says it in his speech to Buffy. The prophecy never said anything about Buffy being the one that sets him free.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, okay, like when she was trying to get her mother to go to a like sudden vacation.
Right.
Why didn't Giles just say, you know what? Yeah, fuck this. I'm not sacrificing a 16-year-old fucking girl for some fucking prophecy. Buffy, you leave fucking town. If you're not here tomorrow night, this prophecy can't be fulfilled. So, end of story. I don't know. I know. But it's something that's always bugged me.
Well, because I disagree with you to the extent that, like, they have no way of knowing that Buffy's the key to all they know is that if Buffy faces the master tomorrow, she'll die. So while I do agree that the idea of Buffy don't go is fine.
Yeah.
And they do try to make, like, Buffy says, okay, I'm not going to go, so I won't die. So that's fine. Giles is like, no, you're not going to go because I'm not going to lead you to your death. That's fine. But there's still the outlying issue of the fact that they don't know that Buffy is the key
to release the master.
Right. So,
yeah, I know that.
in their minds, the master rises, regardless of whether Buffy's there or not.
Yeah, I'm just saying my main goal as an adult would have been like, you're out of here. You're out of town. Bye-bye. Because if you're not here or anywhere near here, that prophecy can't be fulfilled. I don't know. It's just something that's always, it just seems very loosey-goosey to me. It always has.
This harkens back to the we need to get Buffy back into the game scene. Like, you're right. And everybody was on that page. Like, Buffy don't go, Buffy don't die. Buffy was on that page. Giles was on that page. Everything was copacetic. But then you throw in, you have to throw in the idea that Buffy's the Slayer, and in her heart of hearts, she knows she can't, even if it means her death, she can't just walk away and risk the master rising, because that's bad.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get the whole thing. It just seemed rather wishy-washy to me. Like it should have been something a little more, I don't know, like where like she had like no choice. Like there was no way to avoid this particular situation with this prophecy, because it was just like, because like it said, she will face the master on this day and she will die. Well, then I just wouldn't fucking be there. Problem solved. Prophecy beaten. I win.
Right. But as you and I both know from watching these kinds of shows, that's not the hero's journey.
I know. But I'm just saying, she's a 16-year-old girl. Let's make this a little more, because she's already said, like, fuck this. I'm not dying. I quit. Fuck y'all. Peace. And she deuces out. And I'm like,
Right.
well, then let's make this a little more out of her control. She has no choice. Like, this is going to happen no matter what she does, kind of thing. I don't know. It's just something that's always bugged me.
Yeah. I mean,
Listeners, write in and tell us what you guys feel about this whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I get your point. I see where you're coming from, but at the core of it, the idea is that Buffy's a hero. And she's not a hero isn't concerned for their own life. They're thinking about the bigger picture.
I just have trouble believing a 16-year-old girl is at that level, because we see Buffy become that over the seasons, over the 7 years, and I can totally buy into it. But here in the first season, when she's 16 years old, I mean, she looks dead at Giles and, with tears in her eyes. Giles, I'm 16 years old. I don't want to die. I just have trouble believing, like, it should have been set up to where she's forced into this. Like, I'm not saying like against her will, as far as, she's screaming and crying the whole time. I just mean to where it was a situation where she's like, there's nothing I can do except face this,
Right.
I don't know. That's just my opinion. We can move on. No big deal.
All right. And where do we move on to after the master leaves?
Xander and Angel are still in the tunnels. Apparently it takes them all day to get to the entrance of the creep cave. They see this big flash of light and feel some, rumbling, and Angel says, shit, it's too, well, he doesn't say shit, but he says, it's too late. The master's gone up. So now, finally, they start running. They should have been running the whole time. I mean, come on. But now they start running towards the entrance of the creep cave. And they get there, and Angel's in the lead, and he sees Buffy immediately and flies over to her. She's laying face down in that pool of water. And, of course, he pulls her out of it immediately and flips her over on her back with her head kind of on his lap, and he's checking all of her vitals. And he looks up at Xander and says, she's dead. And Xander's just like, what? And he says, no, she's not dead. And Xander goes over to him, and Angel's like, she's not breathing. And Xander says, yeah, but if she drowned, there's a shot, CPR. And Angel's like, well, you have to do it. I have no breath. And Xander's like, wow, chicka, wow, wow. No problem. Because we know he's a creep. But anyway, he starts doing the CPR, the breathing in the mouth and the chest compressions, and he's saying, come on, come on. And we cut to Willow and Ginny still in the parking lot, surrounded by vampies. And Ginny says, where are they all coming? Or why are they all coming here? And Willow says, not caring. And we hear some tire squeal and a car pull up, and windows rolls down, and it's Cordy. And she says, get in. And I'll finish this last little interstitial scene up. We cut back, and they're still working on Buffy. The breathing for chest compressions, and Xander's saying, come on, breathe, breathe. And then finally she gasps and her eyes open up, and she starts to cough and spits out some water. And Xander says, Buffy? And she says, kind of groggy, she's like, Xander? He's like, welcome back. And then we cut to what, James?
I do have to say, so after her eyes open, she does cough up water and everything, but her eyes open and she doesn't gasp.
She does.
And I remember because it fucking bothered me that
Oh,
her eyes just flew open.
I thought she did, but that's probably just me in my mind because that's what normally happens in every type of scene of that nature.
And I think that's why it bothered me, because her eyes just flew open and there wasn't, like, she didn't gasp for air or anything.
She's like, JK, I've been awake the whole time.
Xander Smooch is good.
Yeah. Like as he's doing the breath, she starts going.
So we cut back to the school parking lot, and Jenny and Willow run into Cordelia's car, and she's like, I was sitting where Kevin and I used to park, and all of a sudden these things are coming at me. A vampire jumps on top of the car, and they scream, and Jenny's like, what do we do now? And Willow says, we have to get to the library, and Cordelia says, the library, great. And she slams on the gas and makes a U-turn, and the vampire flies off the roof of the car, and they start to head toward the school, and the engine revs up as Cordy, guns it towards the doors, and Willow says, we generally walk there, and they fucking crash through the doors of the school and into the hall.
Walls and the wall, the surrounding wall also gets destroyed, and it is clearly made of plaster and fail because there's no fucking way. But anyway,
and we cut to the library real quick, and Giles hears, and he's like, what the? And we come back to the hall, and the Cordy comes crashing through another set of doors and skids to a stop in front of the library, and we cut inside, and Giles is getting up from the table, and we're back in the hall, and there's vampires running into the hall as Willow and Jenny and Cordelia get out of the car, and they run screaming into the library, and they push the doors closed as the vampires are arriving, and we cut inside, and they're leaning against the door, and Giles is like, what's going on? And Miss Calendar's like, guess. And a vampire punches through the window and is grabbing at them, and Giles grabs a bookcase and carries it over to the door, and Willow grabs a sign and she's hitting the vampire's arm with it, and Giles gets the bookcase in front of the door, and then he grabs the copier and pulls it over, and he's like, why are they coming here? And we cut to a shot from the back of the library where we see a tentacle worming its way up through the crack in the floor. And we cut to the roof of the library.
I would just like to interject here really quickly and say,
yeah,
when they pulled up outside the library in the car, she's now driven through two very large, heavy sets of doors and partial walls. And when they pull up to a stop and jump out of the car, I just like to make note that there is not a single scratch on this car. Little dust, little dirt. I mean, this car would look like an accordion in the front if you actually did these things, and it does not have a ding on it.
Do we know how heavy the doors are, though? Really?
Well, let's
they're school doors. I mean,
it's also partial walls that they tear. But I'm just saying there would be like at least some dents on there, and the car is just flawless.
I would have to figure you're right that if the doors are heavy enough that they're causing damage to the surrounding walls when they're being hit, then there should be damage to the car.
Yeah, nothing. So clearly this was probably a rental that they had to return.
Then we cut to a roof.
And the roof is on fire.
And the master's coming out of the roof access door, and he looks at the view, and he smiles, and he takes a deep breath and exhales, and he walks to the edge of the roof, and he holds his arms out, and he says, "My world, oh my beautiful world." And that takes us back to the Master's lair. And Xander and Angel are helping Buffy up, and she asks where the Master is, and Angel says he's gone up, and she starts to leave, and Xander says, "No, you're weak." And Buffy says, "No, I feel strong. I feel different. Let's go." And this bothers me because it's never why.
I know. It's never
Why?
explained.
They
Did she
never
steal some of his essence through the blood transfusion. I don't get
right.
it.
Well, I mean, there wouldn't have been a blood transfusion, otherwise she'd be a fucking vampire now.
Yeah, he's just drinking from her, and
Right.
I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that she died and then they brought her back, and that somehow fucks with the slayerness in her. Like she gets a 2 times bonus now. I don't know.
Right. A renewed spark of life, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never explain it, and it bothered the shit out of me that they never explain it. Like, I would have loved some sort of brief throwaway line or something, but they don't.
Nope.
And that takes us back to the library. And what kind of hijinks are ensuing there, Jeremy?
It's very similar to what happened earlier. That's almost, in fact, the identical scene. They're still barricading shit, the doors especially, trying to keep the vamps out. And then Giles hears and sees that, oh, fuck, they're coming in through the stacks now, too. So Jenny and Willow go running up there to start barricading the windows there with bookshelves. And then Giles is like, fuck my office. So he runs into his office to start barricading those windows, which just leaves Cordelia at the main entrance of the library with they've put bookshelves and signs and printers and all kinds of shit in front of those doors. And so she, so she's doing that, trying to just hold that. And you see this creepy tendril thing pop out of the hole in the ground that's been created by the earthquake earlier, and it starts working its way over near Willow's leg. And then all of a sudden a vampire busts the glass out in the library door and grabs Cordelia by the arm, and she screams and says, "Somebody help." And boom, we cut to the theme music of the show, and Buffy and Angel and Xander are marching with purpose, heading towards the school. And Xander says, how do you know where the Master's going? And she says, "I know." And that's another thing. Yeah.
Like, clearly that's supposed to tie into the whole, like, I feel stronger, more powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like are they trying to establish, like you said, some sort of connection between the two of them now? I don't.
Yeah, I know.
It's never explained. Like, if they want to do that, that's fine. Like, okay,
but throw something in there.
I'm behind that, but like, at least fucking explain it to us.
Yeah.
Don't like hint at it in throwaway dialogue.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway. they walk up to the school, and a single vampire kind of walks up, and he's going to block their way into the doors. And she says, "Oh, look, a bad guy," and never stops walking and just walks right past and just KOs him, just drops him like a sack of shit. And I'm thinking, can somebody stop and stake him? Maybe that would try to be helpful, but they don't. And they reach the roof access door from where the Master had come out from earlier. And she knows he's up there. And she tells Xander and Angel, she's like, "You guys wait here. Keep the rest of the vampires off me." And Xander's like, "Right, gotcha." And she's like, "Angel, put on your game face." Well, he's already got it on. He's already vamped out. And he's like, "I'm ready." And she says, "One way or another, this won't take long." So she heads on up. And I'm going to take this last scene because I've got a clip here.
Okay.
Cordy, cut back to Cordy in the library, and she bites the vampire's hand that was grabbing her through the glass. And she says, it lets go, screaming, and she says, "See how you like it." And that tendril thing has now found Willow's leg, and it snatches her, and she screams. And Giles comes running out of his office like, "Fuck! What now?" And right at that same time, the floor just erupts where there was already like a hole. It just erupts, and it's even bigger now. And this several-headed, I don't even know how to explain. It looks like a several-headed monster, Venus flytraps. It's kind of what it honestly is kind of what it makes me think of. Like, I think it's 2 or 3 heads that's on this thing.
Yeah, I think it's 3 heads. I actually got more of a Cthulhu Elder Gods type vibe from it.
Yeah,
A little.
I can see
But
that.
you're right. It's Venus flytrappy.
Yeah. And so, all the while, all this stuff's going on, the master's watching through the skylight above the library there, because he's up on the roof, and he's kind of like lightly clapping. He's like, "Yes, yes, come forth, my child, come into my world."
It's like a giddy little kid watching his favorite movie.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah. And then you hear Buffy cut in and say, "I don't think it's yours quite yet." And he says, "Well, we'll just play the clip." And this is what he says.
Yes. Come forth, my child, come into my world.
I don't think it's yours just yet.
You're dead.
I may be dead, but I'm still pretty. Which is more than I can say for you.
You were destined to die. It was written.
What can I say? I flunked the written.
And at that moment, he reaches out with the Force once again and says, "Come here." And she just is like paralyzed and slowly just kind of coming towards him. And then what happens, James?
We're back inside the library, and Willow is screaming as that creature tries to drag her away from Miss Calendar, and Jenny's yells for Giles, and he grabs an axe from the table and rushes up to the stairs and starts swinging it, and the creature's roaring in pain, and they're screaming, and we cut back to the roof, and Buffy walks up to the master, apparently hypnotized, and he grabs her by the throat again, and he's like, "Did you really think you could beat me up here if you couldn't down there?" And he lets go of her neck, and she looks at him, kind of curious, and she's like, "You have fruit punch mouth." He says, "What?" And she cold cocks him, and he falls down, and she says, I think it's like, "Save the hypnosis for the tourists," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And
we begin the karate fight.
And they start fighting. And I wouldn't say it's a karate fight. She's doing some karate, but he's not really.
I am always going to call these karate fights in this show.
He's not really doing any karate.
No, he's not really doing much of anything, which is he's got all these power. And anyway, go ahead.
Well, obviously he knows now that the hypnosis thing isn't going to work on her anymore. Yeah. So outside of that, and like vampire strength, I don't really think he's got much up his sleeve. So they're fighting, and then we go back into the library, and Giles is still swinging his axe at the creature and the demon, and the monster ends up knocking Giles off of the balcony where the stacks are, the upper level, and he lands on one of the tables, and the table breaks and falls over onto its end, leaving a big protruding spike. Foreshadow. And that cuts back to the door to the roof access, and a couple of vampires attack Angel and Xander, and Angel stakes one of them, and Xander punches out the other one. And we come back to the library, and one of the creature's heads is getting ready to attack Giles, and another one's facing Willow. And we cut to the roof, and what's happening there?
Well, Buffy suddenly pulls this front flip and flips over the master, lands behind him, and he spins and grabs her by the throat and says, "Where are your jibes now? Will you laugh when my hell is on earth?" And she's kind of turns and glances down through the skylight and sees that big broken table that's pointing up as a perfect spike. And all of a sudden, she grabs him by the throat, and he's like, "What?" And she goes, "Are you that amped about?" She goes, "Are you that amped about hell? Well, then go there." And then she literally just body slams him through the skylight, and he lands right onto that big protruding wooden chunk, which perfectly impales him through the heart. And all of this black shit just starts coming flying out of his mouth and his eyeballs, and all of his skin and everything just starts, like, I don't even know how to describe it, just kind of flaking.
He's dusting. It's just a more enhanced
more elaborate
dusting effect. Yeah.
And the fact that it leaves his entire skeleton behind, which we've never seen before and we never see again. So he's kind of dusted, I guess. The giant monster thing, as soon as Master dies, the giant monster thing from Little Shop of Horrors immediately lets go all of its tendrils everywhere, and it just disappears. It goes right back down into that hole.
Feed me, Seymour.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bit later in the library. Buffy, Xander, and Angel, they all arrive, and Cordy lets them in. She's unbarricaded the main door. They're like vamps and gone. Master, dead. Hellmouth is closed. And they say, they call for Buffy a couple times. She says, "Oh, sorry, it's been a weird day." And Xander's like, "Yeah, Buffy died and everything." And Willow says, "Wow, harsh." And Giles is very happy and pleased to see her alive and okay. And he says, "Well, I should have known that wouldn't stop you." And somebody says, "Well, what do we do now?" Or Jenny says, "What do we do now?" And Giles says, "Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd like to get out of this place. I don't like the library very much anymore." Now that he's discovered that the Hellmouth opening is right underneath it. Xander says, "Hey, I hear there's a dance at the Bronze tonight. Could be fun." And he says, "Buffy," and she looks down. She's looks horrible, and she's battle scarred and whatnot. And she's like, "Sure, we saved the world. I say we party." And somebody says, "What about him?" Talking about the master skeleton. And she looks at it and she says, "He's not going anywhere, loser." And so they all head off for the Bronze. And then the camera slowly pans back to the skeleton, and we get a shot of the skeleton one more time. And that's it. That's the end of season 1.
Yeah, there's a couple funny quotes as they're leaving. You hear Giles, and he says, "I'm not dancing," and Miss Calendar says, "We'll see." And Xander's
like, "Bitch, I ain't dancing."
Xander's like, "What's the story with the car?" And Cordelia's like, "Oh, that was me saving the day." Which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And Angel says, "By the way, I really like your dress," and Buffy kind of cuts him off, and she's like, "Yeah, big hit with everyone."
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, rate this
that's-
bitch, James.
tell me, what do you think?
4.5. By far the best episode of the season, in my opinion. It loses a half a point for some of the things I brought up as we were going along. But man, the performances in this episode, especially from SMG and Allison Hannigan, stellar. Because some of the best performances I've seen in the show so far. All in all, other than the things I've mentioned, the writing was good. The action was good. It was very, very balanced between the prose and the actual action and moving along with the story, which He Who Must Not Be Named is pretty well known for. Yeah, I just, other than the things I brought up, I didn't see much wrong with it. That the special effects with the monster were a little, but shoestring budget, especially in this first season. So I give it a pass on that. So yeah, 4.5, man. Best to me. This is a quintessential episode of Buffy. Definitely one that you got to show someone. You're trying to introduce to the show. Without question. So 4.5 all day long, baby. What about you?
3.
Oh my. Do tell.
It's not that I didn't enjoy the episode. I did enjoy the episode. I do agree. This is definitely, it goes in the list of episodes that you show someone to get them to buy into the idea that it's a good show. The performances by everyone involved, especially Sarah Michelle Gellar and Allison Hannigan, phenomenal. I don't feel like overall as a season finale it was necessarily executed as well as it could have been. That, like I said, that scene with Willow and Buffy in Willow's bedroom, like I said before, I don't feel like it was earned. It was, in my opinion, a cheap insert scene to drive the narrative that Buffy can't quit, get Buffy back into the game, so to speak. Which I get, but like I said, it wasn't earned. This isn't something that I feel like should have traumatized Willow the way it did at this point. I hate to say it, I almost wish they had killed somebody that meant something to Buffy, and that was her driving force behind, well, I guess I can't give this up. I guess I have to do this.
Well, as long as it had been her mother, I would be okay with that.
So, and then just the other things that just go without explanation. Buffy feeling more powerful and stronger, knowing where the master is going to be. There's no payoff to any of that. There's no explanation.
Yep.
I almost feel again like it was the idea of her feeling more powerful is like, well, this is a throwaway line of how we're going to explain that she's able to overcome the master. Same way with the, just knowing where he's going to be is, it's throwaway dialogue. We don't have to explain how Buffy and Xander and Angel end up back at the library where everything's going on. So yeah, that's where I stand on it. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad episode. Everyone knocked it out of the park. It is definitely in that bundle of episodes that you show someone to get them into the show.
Yeah, if you put together, say, a 12-episode best of collection, this has to go in there.
Oh yeah, this is going in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of the good stuff in it elevates it past a 3 for me. So.
Alrighty then. Well, let's jump into some monsterology.
Nothing this week.
The one time I actually kicked to it, and we have
the
nothing.
one time you remember. Yeah, no, it was the standard. You know,
Sure.
the
what they pretty much Giles already explained, and
right. I mean, it was vampires. It was the master. It was the show's namesake. You know,
right.
nothing unique there,
except for the plant from Little Shop of Horrors.
Our body count is 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 this week.
Ooh, I believe that's our.
I'd have to go back and look. I think that's our highest body count this
Pretty
season.
sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Granted, 2 of those kills did happen off screen.
Well, actually, there were 4 total in the AV room, correct?
So we've got the unidentified vampire at the beginning.
Okay.
Plus the 2 that Buffy mentions in that scene. So that's 3. Then we've got Kevin, the 2 boys, and the 2. Oh, you're right. So, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yes, this is definitely our highest body count.
That is without question, our highest body count.
Because I left off with Kevin, but we've also got with Kevin, the 2 boys and 2 girls that were killed in the AV room. We've got Buffy. We've got the vampire that Angel staked, and then of course the master himself.
And I gotta be honest, I am happy to see the master go. I enjoy the master. Spoiler alert: he doesn't come back in future seasons of either, but he's kind of like they'll do flashbacks to him,
right?
Way, and I enjoyed him much more in those flashbacks than I did here in this first season. I think he was just very. It's the first season, so
And I think that's part of what brings this episode down to a 3 for me.
Sure, because it was the wrap up, the big and it was just kind of.
It was right. It was supposed to be the big wrap up to this season long arc of the master rising, and there was just not a lot to it.
Yeah, there really wasn't. In first season, super shoestring budget. I get it. That's why I give it, leeway and just try to judge it for what it was instead of.
I'm not here to give leeway and let the show stand on its laurels. No.
Well,
that's how this episode felt. That's how this episode felt for me.
Yeah, James ain't have it. Any goofs, gaffes, deleted scenes, lines?
We'll jump into goofs and gaffes because I wasn't able to find any. I
disagree because I saw one right on screen.
What? I missed it then.
Well, it wouldn't technically, I guess, be considered a goof, but when she body slams the master through the skylight.
Yeah.
And then we cut to his stunt double actually taking the fall.
Yeah.
The stunt double is falling butt first, like perfectly setting, like with his legs straight out, his butt and his back totally straight, like falling down like he would just impale his asshole. But when we cut to the next scene and he hits the stake, he's flat on his back, so I don't know. I know it's little, but things like that in movies, man, drives me crazy.
I probably didn't notice because I wouldn't consider it a goof or a gaff. I would just presume.
No, it's not. It's just it's an annoyance to me.
I would have just presumed that the body shifted in air.
Well, here's the thing, though. He was like maybe 4 feet from his landing spot when he was still sitting, just like he was sitting in a chair, and then a literal millisecond later he's like, blah, perfectly impaled. And anyway,
jumping to behind the scenes, he who shall not be named wanted to have a 90 vampire convergence on the school.
Yeah, they went that off with that budget, especially when they blew 5,000 at the very beginning to dust a vampire.
But yeah, because of budget restrictions, they weren't able to do that. They
managed to make it look overwhelming to me.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned the final exchange between Buffy and Angel, where he says he likes her dress and she says, yeah, big hit with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's because that wasn't in the original script. It was added.
You say?
It was added during production of the episode. So I'm sure it's ADR dialogue.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she ad-libbed it. So
I don't think it was ad-libbed, but since it was added, I mean, it might have been ad-libbed, but it wasn't added. It wasn't part of the original script. It was added during the production of the episode, so it's possible that it was ad-libbed. So the demon that comes up out of the Hellmouth, was created by a special effects company called Optic Nerve.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally supposed to be CGI, but of course the budget didn't allow for that. So each tentacle is actually a separate costume that has a human inside of it manipulating the tentacle.
Yeah, very Jabba the Huttish from